Hello, my name is Sedlson and this is RevolutionTV. Today we are doing an interview with Zuhair. He is a 26-year-old Palestinian from the West Bank currently living in China. We are also joined here by Owen, who's going to be my interview correspondent. Zuhair, my first question to you is, do you condemn Hamas?
Well, should I? Well, but I think man, you took me by surprise, man. You took me by surprise, man.
It's a joke.
Okay, I'll take
Do
it
you
as a
condemn
joke.
Hamas, though? Do you think that your cultural identity and heritage has been affected by this recent war that has by now been going on for basically 5 months?
Cultural identity and heritage. I mean, if anything, I think that what happened has just strengthened my connection to my history and my land and my culture as well. It's just, in the time of hardship, people learn to stick together. And when they stick together, they learn to stick to what makes them this entity, this group of people, this people, basically. So I think, it has pretty much strengthened all of that in me. And in many of people, I can say it did that to all Palestinians currently.
Nice.
Yeah, sure.
Do you feel that, essentially, you have all these Arab governments with, Sisi, the Saudi monarchy, their absolutist sort of style of monarchy, and even the Ayatollah to some extent. Do you think they're actively complicit with Israel in this genocide? That they're sort of planning it out, that they're trying to make it look as natural as possible? Or something like that, something along those lines. Not like a false flag type of, weird right-winger thing, but just do you believe that these governments are they're doing talks and fake diplomacy for the sake of trying to sweep it under the rug to just essentially kill all Palestinians and be complicit in that sort of act?
I would say pretty much they are complicit. I would not say that they want to get rid of Palestinians or that that it's their target, or that they are in it with Israel. But I would say that when they look at their short-term goals and when they look at their basically their geostrategic standings currently at this time, they don't see the rights of the Palestinians, or they don't see the establishment of a sovereign Palestinian state as a priority at all. And in fact, they see that if they intervene in this conflict, it will just make them lose some of the strength point that they have gained throughout the last years. Speaking of Egypt, for example, the economic crisis that they have had, and even though they have a capable military, speaking about their numbers and the amount of soldiers they have, the amount of weapons they have, the quality of military equipment that they have, but their geostrategic position right now is weak, and even if they wanted to do anything, they wouldn't actually. No, they wouldn't want to do anything right now. But we're not talking about more moral standpoints here. I'm just talking about politics, and I think that basically, even if you are in a weak position when your people are being genocided next to you, you don't just at least the least you can do, from my viewpoint, is that you can open the border. You can force Israel. You can put some pressure on Israel to get these munitions in. You cannot just they're dealing with Israel. I'm talking about Egypt right now. They're dealing with Israel like it's a little kid asking some nice for something nice from their parent, or from someone who's much higher than them, when I think that they have a lot of strength points, and they have a lot of pressure points that they can use against Israel to at least get the munitions in and to ease the situation for people who want to take refuge. And that's it. I think they're not doing nearly enough. I wouldn't talk about if Iran funded this military attack that happened on 7th October. I wouldn't talk about that. I'm just saying that from my viewpoint, I think that that there was no connection between what Hamas did and between Iran. I think that what they did it on their own, and I think that Iran was alarmed with that, because because to them, Hamas did something that they were not alarmed about before. So that's why I think that their reaction has been very cold to this, and they're trying to slowly back out of the situation temporarily because they don't want a direct conflict right now.
In regards to history, there's been a lot of talk about when this conflict actually started. A lot of Israelis want to put a focus on October 7th as the decimal point when Hamas attacked Israel. A lot of pro-Palestinians like to remind that this actually started over 75 years ago with the Nakba. But then a lot of Israelis like to respond about King David and how Jerusalem has been Jewish over 2,000 years ago. Can you maybe clear up some of this history for us in regards to how long has this been actually going on?
Okay, so let's get back to the Roman Empire era, the year 0 BC. Jesus was born, and the Jews killed Jesus. Okay, so basically talking about the history, I think speaking of things that happened 3,000 years ago would be kind of insane. But speaking of things that directly affect, let's speak about things that directly affect today's history. We don't want to talk about the Canaanites, my ancestors, Canaanite. We don't want to talk about the Assyrians or the Babylons or the ancient Egyptians. We want to talk about the recent events in the last 100 years that actually affect what's happening today. Like in the end of the 19th century, when the first Zionist accords have been happening in Europe, the percentage of Jewish people who've been living in Palestine were about 3 to 4%. And those are mostly Palestinian Jewish people. Those people identify as Palestinians,
Yeah.
People who are living in historic Palestine. And then after the Zionist accords that have happened in Europe, the Jewish people who have been suffering from racism and have been suffering from living in ghettos and being discriminated against in Europe and in many parts of the world, they have started to immigrate to Palestine. And that has not been a problem. The problem was not that Jewish people were immigrating to Palestine. In fact, many people immigrated to Palestine, including Muslims from other parts of the Arab world, and many even Christians immigrated to Palestine throughout different parts of history. Immigration was not a problem. The problem was that the Zionist project in its core was about taking a land that is claimed to be for no people and giving that land to the people who have no land. They call themselves people with no land. Will have a land without people. And that land actually had people. It had more than 1 million Palestinians living on it. That land had my ancestors, basically. And no one can deny that. Like the historic records you cannot deny that there were people calling themselves the Palestinian people living on that strip of land. So when you come here on the goal of cleansing the area of the native population and creating your own political entity and creating your own promised land that is a Jewish ethno-state, and disregarding all the already existing Christian people, the Muslim people, you even have Druze, you have Baha'iyyin, you have many different groups of people living in Palestine. So that is the issue. The tensions started to arise because of the Jewish people who started to build their own to build their own settlements on their own, and disregarding the farmlands that they have taken, because they would take these farmlands by force and they will start building settlements on them. Things started to get more violent. Some people resisted, and of course, at that time, it was the British Mandate. I'm talking about the British Mandate times after 1917, and 1917, Arthur Balfour, who gave the promise, who wrote a promise for Lord Rothschild, telling him that we will give the land of Palestine to the Jewish people, and we will help them establish their nation. on the land of Palestine.
Yeah.
So there was British support for them, which to us Palestinians, we saw this as like these people are occupying us. Yeah. Act of aggression. These people are occupying us. The British, they are occupying us, and we are resisting them. And those people who are occupying us are bringing those immigrants here, and they are arming them, and they are telling them, "Oh, you can go attack these villages, and you will build small settlements here and here." And yeah, so
the British directly gave weapons to the Jewish migrants to basically set up settlements on the Palestinian land after the British banned it. Okay. Interesting.
They started having some militias like the Haganah, if you hear about it, notorious Jewish militias that started actually killing Palestinians, displacing them, taking their lands, and kept repeating on and on and on and on until the tensions reached the height in 1947.
Yeah,
1947, 1948, 1947. You had the partition, the partition law that came from the UN, basically, which is decision number 181, and they decided to partition Palestine and give, I think it was 54%. No, I think it was.
It was a little bit over 50%.
Yeah, I think it was like 54% to the.
Interesting about that is that they decided to give the more strategic and better parts of the land to the Israelis.
Most of the coast will be for the Jewish people. The strategic green fertile lands will be taken from the Palestinians and given to them, and it's just a very, very unjustified law. And you cannot forget that also at that time, from what I know, is that the population of the Jewish people in Palestine was barely 30 to 40% at that time, and you're giving that those people who immigrated recently in the last 30 years, you're giving them more than 50% of the land, and by the way,
not to mention the great morality of establishing an ethno-state in the first place.
The morality of having to establish an ethno-state, a racist ethno-state only for Jewish people. And don't forget that after 1948, the loss of the 1948 war, what Palestinians had after that is only 22%. West Bank and Gaza, 22%. And after 1967, it's even less, because they occupied the West Bank, they occupied Gaza, and they started building settlements in Gaza and the West Bank. Now I'm in the West Bank, and the West Bank is full, hundreds of settlements in the West Bank. I can talk about later about how the life is in the West Bank regarding the settlements and the aggression that is and the violence that is daily there.
Before we get anything that's like dark, like settlers, racial politics and everything like that, just so we can clear the air before we go forward, what are some of your favorite moments while you were living in the West Bank before you went to China for university?
Favorite moments, the West Bank is beautiful. The West Bank is basically all mountains. The West Bank is just a strip of mountains going from the north of the West Bank to the south, to the mountains of Hebron, to the mountains of Mukabbir in Jerusalem, to the mountains of Nablus, where I am from. Nablus, we have the holy mountain of Gerizim, which is also, by the way, it's a holy mountain to Jewish people as well. Gerizim, and the mountain of Ebal. So my favorite moments would be going up on the, driving my car, going with my friends to a high place in the mountain, and just sitting there, chilling there, looking downwards, and enjoying the natural sight. But even with that natural sight, you will see, if you look on the horizon, you will see settlements all around, here, there, settlement, there. But even though, I think there's so much, there's a lot of good moments I can think of. Yeah, times with my family, times with my friends, the good food, the amazing food in Palestine, Middle Eastern food.
What's your favorite Palestinian dish?
Definitely msakhan, which is the most famous Palestinian dish. Msakhan is basically, bread that you make on some sort of a stone, you know,
Mm.
old style bread that you make on a stone, and that bread is dipped in onions and olive oil, Palestinian olive oil, which has a strong taste. And then it's baked with chicken on the top. It's baked with chicken on the top.
Nice.
It's kind of sour, and it's really delicious.
Back to politics, unfortunately. What are your hopes for the Palestinian people in general? And do you believe in what some liberals like to talk about, the two-state solution? Do you believe that a one-state solution with equal rights is possible? Or do you believe that Israel is just going to basically dominate over all of Gaza and eventually the West Bank and establish some kind of a South African type apartheid regime that's going to last for many more decades?
You asking me what I wish for or what I think is probably to happen?
What do you believe is going to happen?
Yeah, I believe what I believe is gonna happen. Of course, I wouldn't say I'm hopeless. I would say I have hope, and I would say I believe that justice will always be bestowed down on us, and I don't believe that that this brutal regime will survive all these years. You know, the
Don't worry about it.
the contradictions will not be able to sustain that regime, and I think that through time people will get more angry and angry, and I believe in resistance, and I think that at the end of the time the regime will get tired because they came here for safety. They came here to find a safe haven for Jewish people. But they have to understand that you cannot find a safe haven by inflicting pain on other people continuously, because whatever safety that they have derived, which I don't believe for a second that they have derived any safety, is on the graves and on rivers of over rivers of blood, and that is unsustainable, and it will crumble. And I believe that Palestine should be unified again. It should be one state, and that one state will include everyone, and it will also include the Jews. It will include the Muslims. It will include the Christians there. It will include everyone. A secular Palestine that is equal and socialist, of course.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
So we know obviously the Aaron Bushnell situation where a man named Aaron Bushnell, who is an active member of the Air Force and part of the logistics team, was seeing what was going on in Israel, and he was seeing things like information that Mossad had on terrorists, and he saw things like drone bombings, terrible acts of cruelty and violence, airstrikes and everything, and he decided that the best way to protest is to self-immolate outside of the Israeli embassy, in which a Israeli embassy member ironically started pulling a gun on him. And so generally I know I've seen some reactions to that.
Classic American police.
I've seen some reactions across the Middle East, specifically in I think it's called Sana'a in Yemen. I know the name of the city, I just do not know how it's pronounced, because English to Arabic is a bit weird. Sana'a. All right, sweet. I've seen some people, and they're holding things of Aaron Bushnell. They're holding images, portraits, stuff like that, and they're saying "Death to America" and things like that. Which obviously anybody that's principled enough knows that "Death to America" doesn't mean they actually want to kill every single American. No, liberals, think harder. So we know the reaction of that across the Middle East. What is the reaction specifically in the West Bank? I see some pictures of the Jenin brigades, and they're holding photos of Aaron Bushnell. They're saying it's an American atrocity that this had to have happened to him. What are your thoughts on that? And what are the people in the West Bank's thoughts on that?
Well, I personally think that Aaron Bushnell was an honest man with very high integrity, and with a very high integrity enough for him to be part of this machine that is called the U.S. Army, the U.S. Air Force. Basically, he was in the Air Force, as I know, and he realized that this entity he's in is a cog in a machine that actually it is the machine that that funds and kills people abroad, and the way that he saw how the result of this on, as this genocide is broadcast on live TV, basically no one can deny it except for psychopaths, I think. So
It's true. It's true.
yeah, this man could not. He's just an honest man, and yeah, and he cannot just a man like that who has morals and who has high beliefs like that. He cannot just stand being part of this. And I think it took a toll on him, and he probably had sleepless night thinking that I am part of this system that murders and tortures and separates people from their parents and orphans people and basically a killing machine.
The worst of the worst.
Yeah, the worst of the worst. So yeah, I think that is the reason he did it. I think he's a extremely sympathetic and empathetic person, and I really wish. I think in a free Palestine we should have like a statue of Aaron Bushnell, and I think many Palestinians agree with me. Like I saw comments too, and literally everyone is like clapping to this man and saying R.I.P. to this amazing man that is Aaron Bushnell.
And I think just to point out here, the irony of the situation is that you'll have all these U.S. veterans saying he could have done something different, and then there's like a split where the liberals, on the neoliberals, by the way, so this includes conservatives as well, the so-called carers of veterans or carers of the active service members, where essentially whenever the man goes against his government master, we have to call him things like, I've seen this on social media, we have to call him wastes of skin, waste of boot camp training, waste of taxpayer dollars, waste of like a family member and a father, because I think he had a child. But although they do like to lie, so I'll have to look into it a bit more. I haven't looked into it specifically, mostly to protect sort of my own kind of headspace on this. I don't have like a sort of cold heart towards U.S. veterans or people that have fought in active wars, but I also certainly don't coddle them. So I guess that's kind of like why I need to ask specifically about Aaron Bushnell and that entire situation, because it's insane to think about that, somebody self-immolating a member of like the armed forces is just doing that in front of the Israeli embassy. And you'll have like this sort of contradiction between people that love, veterans or active service members, but they hate whenever they go against like their government master and what their governments are supposed to be saying about governments across the world and people across the world. So thank you for that answer.
If the wall around Gaza has been up for about 20 years, if I'm not mistaken now, is there maybe any conflict between the Palestinians living in Gaza and the Palestinians living in the West Bank? Is there any difference, ideological? Have there become two separate almost cultures now that it has been over 2 decades? Or is there complete solidarity amongst the two groups?
This is a difficult question for me to answer because, as you have mentioned, the wall has been separating us for around 20 years. I'm a person living in the West Bank. I've been born in the West Bank, Nablus, the city in the north of the West Bank. And I have rarely ever interacted with Gazans, And I think the only place I have interacted with Gazans is, ironically, outside of Palestine, like the Gazans who managed to escape or take refuge outside of Palestine. And of course, no, there's no difference in culture. They're still Palestinian people. They just have a certain distinct dialect, and I think it's distinct dialect, and that's it. Mm-hmm. But speaking about solidarity, of course, everyone in the West Bank is 100% in solidarity with the Gazans, and they would do whatever they can to help and appease them. And many people are trying their best to send money, send aid, but if it's impossible to send aid, the only way is just to send some. The only possible thing to do is to send some money through donations and stuff like that. So yeah, full solidarity on the West Bank. No one is thinking that these people are different from us or whatever. No. The wall did not separate us.
That's good to hear.
That's good to hear. So recently, Israel has decided to, well, I believe through their national bank and through some private investors, and in fact, some American companies have decided that they've annexed about 650 acres of land in the West Bank through finance capital and through financial means, essentially. Do you think this method of colonialism is not talked about enough compared to what we know as the militarized settler method, where the settler will come in, kick out the Palestinian home, or let's say raid their home, kill them, and then the IDF will back them up if they face any resistance? Do you think this sort of finance colonialism is not talked about enough compared to just the normal settler method?
I think this method or methods or applications close to this method are what's mostly being applied. The Israelis, they don't claim that they are stealing these lands. No criminal will say I'm a criminal. They claim that they own these lands through the means that you mentioned. Yeah. They claim. First of all, they have the religious claim, and second of all, of course, they claim that they bought these lands before. They're saying, if you talk to a Zionist, especially about, for example, the 2021 Sheikh Jarrah incident, if you remember, when Palestinian residents in Jerusalem were being kicked out of their house.
Oh yeah.
For some New Yorkers to come and replace them.
It is actually what radicalized me in the first place.
Yeah.
If someone else does not steal it, I will steal it.
And I remember that at those times, I argued with some Zionist, and he was really saying he really thinks that those Arabs are occupiers there, and he was saying that the Palestinians stole those houses like some 100 years ago or something, and we Jews bought these houses during the Ottoman Empire times, and so of course
Your
they would
family
claim,
stole it 2,000 years ago from us.
Yeah. So they would always claim that we have some legal claim to this land, but it's they are the occupation force, they are the government, they are the law because right now, so they can claim that they bought some lands, and then they will send the army and they will do the dirty job. So I think this is the method you mentioned is the most commonly used. It's just a circle of how these things complete each other, the law and the IDF, and
This is actually a pretty good segue from the last one in regards to the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. What is the kind of like the power dynamics between the Palestinian Authority and the settlers? And do they hold any power, or is it just basically a nothing, a charade? What is their role?
Can I answer in just 2 words? Zero power.
Zero power.
Zero power.
So they have no power over the settlers, nothing.
Nothing. The settlers are protected by the IDF, and if you want to talk about this topic later, I can tell you what happens when the IDF raids our cities. The national security, the Palestinian Authority forces, which are barely armed, they just have some AK-47s, and I think they only allowed 9 bullets in each ammo cartridge, and they pull away. They magazines. They go to their vans. They fuck off and they go back to their bunkers, and the IDF goes in and does the dirty job, and they leave. And then our security forces, they go out and go back to their positions.
Shit.
Yeah,
that is horrible.
Yeah, and
this is what happens.
And sort of a segue from that, have you ever interacted with these settlers, these super, essentially neo-Kahanists with rifles that are angry, they hold so much hate in their heart? I mean, if you ever interact with them, if you've ever interacted with them personally, what was it like just to see them and talk to them? Besides being almost shot at.
I personally only see them from afar, I'm in my car or driving away and see them on the sides of the streets, on the exit of my city or something like that. There's always IDF around, of course, to protect these settlers from the very savage Arab Palestinians. And I've never personally interacted with them, and I've only seen them from afar. You just see them, but I know many people who interacted with them, and these interactions were not very pleasant. There's so many cases, especially recently, because of the political landscape. Recently, they have been fired up a lot, and if you go outside of the city, they will try to attack your car. If they see a white plate, you know, a white plate on your car means it's a Palestinian car, Palestinian Authority. Green plate is Israeli. So when they see a white plate car, they start attacking it with stones, and they will try to break your car apart. And if you stop somewhere, they will try to ambush you and like stop in front of your car and beat you up and get you out of the car. I have a friend of my brother's friend. He got beaten up so bad, like his eye got like this big, and thankfully they didn't kill him. He went back, and he got a broken arm, and his eye was like puffed, and they beat him up so bad. They pulled him out of his car.
Do these sort of interactions with these settlers, do they escalate so bad to the point where like the Palestinian Authority security forces are called and they just do nothing, and they just run away or do nothing, or they're just complicit in this sort of act that goes on?
You have to understand something. That the Palestinian Authority forces, according to the Oslo Accords, that we Palestinians don't agree with, the Oslo Accords, they are only allowed to operate inside of Area A. Area A means that it's all area that is under the control of the Palestinian Authority. And Area A's are very, very, very limited. I would say it's barely 4% of Palestine, Area A's. Area A is where I live in. Like, my city is in Area A. The villages, Palestinian villages, are Area A. Like, if I go to the exit of my city, I just walk a little bit. Now I am in Area C. Area C is under the security control of the IDF. So you don't meet the settlers inside of Area A. If the settler tries to drive to our cities, maybe you have seen pictures of these signs that the Israelis have put. It's a sign in Hebrew and in Arabic. It says, "This is a Palestinian Authority area. Area A, Palestinian Authority area. Drive back. It's a dangerous area." They're saying this to their settlers, so they don't drive into our cities.
Can they be shot in Area A?
Who? The settlers?
The settlers,
no. Technically, they can be, but there will be consequences. They are protected by the IDF. The IDF will go back and they will find whoever shot them and they will kill him. And a lot of times they will punish their family as well. Like, they will try to destroy their family's house. Like, there's a thing. If you do any act of killing against Israel and any Israeli citizen, any IDF, even if you try to attack any IDF member and you run away with it, if they find you, even if they kill you already, they will try to harass your family, and in the worst cases, they will as a punishment, they will destroy your family's house. They will go with that caterpillar thing. What is it called? The thing that destroys buildings.
Excavators,
bulldozer.
wrecking balls, bulldozers.
Bulldozer. Yeah. They will bring that, and they will. They will come in like a wrecking ball, or they will use detonate the building. They have that method too. Sometimes they detonate it.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Do they let you know that?
A lot of times they will let you know. In the West Bank, they will let you know. They will say, "Oh, we're coming. Your son did this and that. He had an act of aggression against the IDF and our Israeli security, and we will destroy your house." So you have like 12 hours. If you're lucky, you have 24 hours to clear your house, and we will come destroy it.
Holy shit!
So Zuhair, you live in China, right? I want to ask you, what is kind of the overall media perception of what is going on in Palestine in the Chinese media, right? Is there maybe some kind of what we call manufactured consent in the West, where the media basically backs up the government to create a narrative? Is there something like that happening in China, where the Chinese media takes the state's narrative? And what is the Chinese narrative towards this ongoing 5-month now conflict and genocide in general? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I would say the Chinese media is much, much better. It's not perfect, but it's much better. At least they don't call us terrorists. They
step in the right direction.
That's as a start. They step in the right direction. They like their rhetoric. If you read the Western media, they say that like the tone that they have is that this is our fault. Like, this is my fault. Like, they destroyed my house, and
Yes.
it's my fault. It's my fault because I existed there. I'm a Palestinian and I'm a terrorist. Like
Yeah.
you feel this tone in the Western media, but in China, no, they you can feel that they put the blame on the Israelis. They would say that Israelis. They would say on the Chinese media that the Israelis are illegally occupying Palestine. The Israelis are building settlements illegally. The Israelis are committing genocide. They would say they wouldn't say on the media that the Israelis are committing genocide, but you would see like many commentators from the media who would claim that as well, which is not a claim basically. And yeah, it's much better. The Chinese government stance on this is that they think that Israel is illegally occupying the West Bank and are having an illegal blockade and aggression against Gaza, and they need to step back to the 1967 borders to establish the two-state solution. So yeah, the Chinese government stands with a two-state solution, which is much better than the Western stance, which is no state for the Palestinians. But we still think that it's could be better. It could be better.
Quick follow-up before we go to Owen. What do you personally see your like personal social circles in China? How they treat you? How they talk about like the more ground level population? How they talk about what's going on, and in regards to how the Chinese population treats like Arabs, for example, yeah, and Muslims.
I would say the Chinese people are very, very humble. They don't like. I don't think this is from my personal experience. I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone. I just think that they really see people as equals, and that is something completely different from my experience. I lived in the West before, and I don't think I've been viewed as an equal by many people. But here I can see that the Chinese people, they love to explore different cultures, and they think Arab culture is fascinating, and they try to learn it. I've met a lot of many Chinese people who are learning Arabic vigorously, deeply, like learning, trying to understand the culture and the language, and they try to befriend me. So I can help them with that very difficult adventure of learning Arabic. It's a very difficult thing, you know.
Yeah.
And they really love to learn about my culture when they know I'm Palestinian. A lot of them would ask me so many questions, and I would say that they are a lot, especially the younger generation, are very aware because the media portrays it a lot, and social media in China, they also talk about it a lot. You will see a lot of Chinese people and also Arab people in China talking about it. So I think they are very much aware of what's happening, and they know that they're very, very, very sympathetic with us. I've never seen, except for like those weird Chinese liberals, I've never seen anyone who's not sympathetic with us.
Chinese liberals, man.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man.
The Chinese have a history of colonialization and resistance, so I'm pretty sure culturally they sympathize with the Palestinian cause.
Yeah. Many of them had this viewpoint. They keep saying that we sympathize with Palestine and we love it because it reminds us closely of what the Japanese have done to us. I've heard this like so many times from Chinese people. And one nice thing that happened to me like some days ago, I was there was like some old lady, like she was like 70 years old or something, and she was selling some pickles outside on the street, like not in a shop, like you know, in a little shack in the street, just selling some pickles. And I wanted to buy some, and I just picked some and talked to her, and she's like, "Where are you from? You look like a guy from Xinjiang." She thought I'm like some guy from Xinjiang. So I told her I'm an Arab Palestinian. She's like, "Huh? You guys are the best. You Palestinians are the best people. People are so nice. You're so good. You will not pay. I will not allow you to pay. You will not pay."
Oh,
she was
dude,
like, "You're not gonna
sick,
pay,
bro."
I was like, "Oh,
That's amazing.
Oh, the pickle's good though.
Honestly, I scanned the QR code and I scanned the QR code and I paid anyway. No, they were not good, but it was worth it.
All right.
And I think I paid her more than I think I paid her more than they worth. But anyway, but yeah, it's like those people are quite
Right now, if you had to describe, like, just one singular sentence, just describe the current state of the West Bank, what would that sentence be? You could even do one word if you wanted to, honestly. But
tension. Basically, it's like when you bring an elastic and you pull. I mean, I think we've been pulling it throughout my whole life. Okay, so like we've been pulling it throughout my whole life. I'm 26 years old now. And I think we are at this stage here now, and it will either be cut or it's gonna be like released, and the backlash is gonna be so strong for everyone involved. I think there's so much tension. People are so furious and angry in the West Bank. People are just fed up, and they're just sick of all of this oppression and enclave that we are living in. We have much more freedoms than people in Gaza, but even us in the West Bank, we feel like we're like the checkpoints, the searchings, we don't even have our borders. Our whole economy is controlled by the Israelis. The streets, the transportation, they decide when will the the governmental workers in Palestine, in the Palestinian Authority, their income, what's the word for income, their wages come through come through the Bank of Israel, and then they get transferred to the Palestinian Authority's Ministry of Finance, and then they get spent on the workers. So they control that, and for many years those wages have been coming so late, and people are like having a very, very difficult life. If you are a government worker, your life is tough. If you're like a teacher or whatever, like in the medical field, and life is tough. Life is tough in the West Bank, and the economic situation and the lack of security and the lack of freedoms, it's just gonna explode at the end. And I think it's getting so close. And I think this Ramadan we will see a lot of bad things happen.
Getting into ideological territory, as a Marxist yourself, how do you see that your perspective on this struggle, this over 75-year-old struggle or 80-year-old struggle, is different from someone who might not be exposed to dialectical materialism and Marxist ideology in general? How does your perspective differ from maybe your family or your friends that are not socialists, Marxists?
I think the main difference is that as a Marxist, I see this as an extension of European colonialism that has been happening throughout the 18th, 19th, and 20th century. I see this as an act of colonialism, and we are being occupied, and this is an attempt of erasure of our people, just for some other people to annex this land and to use it for their own benefit, and to get rid of the original people, regardless of their religion, regardless of their faith. You're gonna create animosities with those people, which are us, regardless of who they are, because those people are in the way. We are in the way. We are in the way of their project. That's us to them. We are just some block in the way. And that's the main difference between me and some other people. Oh, sorry, you can ask.
And what is, I guess, the goal of the Israeli project, right? Like, if we get into the most pessimistic territory, right? Once they occupy everything, what is the goal of the Israeli colonial project? Just expansion and expansion.
An expansionist Jewish ethno-state.
But is that something that is stable, or is that just going to crumble upon itself once there is no more land to expand to?
Like Nazi Germany.
No, as I said lastly, I think it's not sustainable at all. It will crumble. As I said, the contradictions will not be able to sustain it. And that's my view about this makes me different from some others, not me personally, but like Marxists in general. And the way we view this is different from others, is because some others might view this as a nationalist struggle. Some others might see this as religious struggles. Like I don't deny that there are some people who claim to this to be a war between Islam and Judaism, and I think this idea is destructive and it's not helpful at all, because you might win this fight against Judaism, but what comes next? An Islamic theocracy, or when does that end? This is not the goal for a lot of people, and I don't think this is sustainable as well.
While we're on the topic of politics specifically, you'll see that there are the more neoliberal Palestinians that have escaped the West Bank, and some even in Gaza, although I haven't met many sort of these Gazan neoliberals that believe in, Western supremacy and the finance capital and the occupation, and believing that they're actually doing peacekeeping while doing the occupation. For example, think of your average Twitter liberal Palestinian like John Aziz, or Azizonomics, if you don't know his or if you haven't seen his stuff.
Oh my God!
Which is ironic because his parents were expelled during the Nakba, so it's very weird to see him to sort of see what is it like to see sort of. It sounds very ethno-nationalistic in a way.
His family doesn't even claim him.
Yeah, it's sort of what even is that? Essentially, I mean, I don't want to say it, but it's sort of like Uncle Tomming almost, if that makes sense. If you get the term, what Uncle Tomming is. You'll see it a lot with, for example, black conservatives in America.
A lot of those people are speaking about those Palestinians. A lot of them are what we call Palestinians, because they are essentially cut off from the culture and cut off from the society. They don't know what's happening. Some of them are not the son of one of Hamas's commanders. What was his name? I forgot his name. He's a guy who's living in the US, and he was the son of one of Hamas's commanders, and now he's in the US. He's a CIA tool.
Oh my God!
Speaking of yeah, and speaking of Aziz, for example, this guy he's only been to the West Bank one time when he was 4 years old, as one of his relatives claimed. He's only been to the West Bank one time, and he was 4 years old, so he doesn't remember shit. Sorry for the word, but he doesn't remember shit of the West Bank. Yeah. He doesn't know anything about what's happening. He doesn't even hang out with he doesn't even hang out or speak Arabic. He doesn't even hang out with Arabs or Palestinians.
I'm not surprised.
And he doesn't know anything about what's happening, and all he has is just some this sad Palestinian blood that has to run through him, and that's the way that the Israelis thought that this is a good tool. It's difficult to find if Palestine is sympathetic to the Israeli cause. What cause do you have, man? Your stolen falafel doesn't even taste that good, man. It's a good hunt for them. A Palestinian who's willing to cooperate with us and to use our propaganda and to repeat our lines of talk. That is not very common to find. So yeah, these guys are great tools, just tools. That's what they are, tools.
Back to the, ideological sphere. As a communist yourself, what are your thoughts about the PFLP, which is the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine? How do they differ from Hamas when it comes to tactics, ideology? And as of now, as of 2024, what is their scope, if you know, or what is their influence in comparison with the other resistance militias and organizations?
So the PFLP, they were one of the main fighting forces, especially in the first Intifada and the second Intifada, and at some point they were the ones who were inflicting the most damage to the Israeli regime army, and that's why they've been the first target. Before Hamas became the main fighting force of Palestinians, you had the PFLP, and that's why, as I said, they became the number one target. And sadly, the Israelis have been successful in weakening them and almost expelling their fighting force from the West Bank. I would say they're still very active in Gaza. I remember, I think it was in 2003, they also assassinated Abu Ali Mustafa, who was their second chairman of the PFLP. And afterwards, it became a chaotic. It became a very chaotic period of time after the year 2002, 3, 4, where you had basically no authority in no ruling system after the Second Intifada. The period between the Second Intifada and the elections that happened in 2005 in the West Bank was a very chaotic a very chaotic period of infighting between factions themselves and between the IDF and the resistance themselves. It was a very chaotic time, and this time has weakened not just the PFLP but all of the resistance. But what happened later is that because of the continuous targeting of the leftist fighting forces in Palestine, they became very weakened, and this allowed Hamas to rise afterwards throughout the 80s, 90s, and then 2000s. And Hamas was a major fighting force as well in the Second Intifada, and they have done so many successful operations. And through all of those circumstances, they managed to, I think, in my opinion, to come on top after the Second Intifada. And no one also can deny the fact that they've been supported, basically, especially by the people who are on Netanyahu's side. He wanted to weaken the Palestinian resistance by creating a different kind of force in the resistance, which is an Islamist one, opposing to those other secular ones, including the PFLP. And it worked, but it also backfired, because now this Islamist fighting force is now posing a very big threat upon the Israeli regime. On the terms of resistance, they are the same, but on other terms, like PFLP is a secular fighting force. They say that they are their charter says they are Marxist-Leninist fighting force, but Hamas is an Islamist. They are they claim they are a jihadist fighting force. But of course, if to any Western listener here, if anyone actually listens to this, the jihadist is not a very scary word. It just means someone who struggles against oppression. That's the word jihad. Yeah, I would say the Viet Cong were jihadists as well in that context.
Liberals seething. They don't like that. They don't like the jihad word.
They don't like translation.
No. I don't like that word that you're using.
They don't like translations.
They claim that they claim that they want to commence jihad against the Israelis, and they want to spill all of the Jews to the sea. That's
It's like when 10 years ago everybody was scared of the word Allahu Akbar, which literally just means fucking God is great, right? But
God is great, yeah.
In Arabic.
Funny thing. Like there's a percentage of Christians in Palestine, and they speak Arabic. Surprised liberals. Some Christians.
Is that possible?
Some Arabs are Christians, and those
I don't know if
Christians,
that's possible, man.
Those Christians. They speak Arabic, and they use the Arabic language, and they use the same expressions. So when they see something nice, they say Allahu Akbar, and they mean they probably mean Jesus or something. But yeah, they also say Allahu Akbar, and they say the same expressions that we say. It just means something different, probably a bit different to them, and that's it. Christian jihadists.
Do you believe that the ongoing boycotts are working against the Israeli state? For example, consumers here in America and Western Europe have stopped having like Israeli feta cheese. They've stopped having like McDonald's. They've stopped having Starbucks. I mean, hell, they've stopped actually picking out dates because they aren't Palestinian dates. And they're Israeli dates that are from they're farmed from settlements in the West Bank. Do you believe that those boycotts are working at some extent?
Yeah, of course they are working to some extent. If you inflict noticeable losses to these corporations and to these companies that are showing wild support for the Zionist entity, then of course these companies will rethink their marketing strategy per se. But I think that it needs to be a much more impact for it to actually do something that will change any Israeli policy. I think that the effect can be the impact will not be short term, and it will not be even medium term. It will take a long term for it to gradually change policies, and for the Israeli government itself to have that change reach them. And I don't think that will happen anytime soon. Honestly, I think the solution. Of course, we need to boycott. Of course, it's the least moral thing that we can do. But I don't think that it will solve our issues right now. I think something more imminent, something more immediate will solve these problems.
Do you think that is it possible for Israel to be pressured to stop the current genocide, or is there essentially nothing that can stop their current operations, even if the United States orders them to stop? Or is there a hope that they will actually stop what their operations are in Gaza currently?
First of all, addressing the American government, addressing them to stop, I think this is all just a spectacle. It's just a theater. The American government doesn't care about them stopping this. Currently the Biden administration wants Biden to be re-elected next term, and the percentage of Arab Americans and Muslim Americans and people sympathetic to the Palestinian cause don't like if their guy is funding genocide outside of his borders. I think it's funding genocides. I think it's bad, no matter how controversial it is to liberals. I think it's bad, and that's the thing. And
honestly, I think genocide is bad. Yeah, me too.
Oh yeah, one time I was just thinking before I sleep, and I reached this conclusion.
Let's say it's a gray area. It's a gray area. Let's agree to disagree.
It's a gray area. I wish Netanyahu thought about that. We should tell him. We should deliver the message.
I'll send him a mean tweet.
I will personally deliver a message to him.
I'll send him a mean tweet. I got you. I'll quote tweet him. I made it.
Quote tweet him. So basically, I think that Biden is doesn't care about ending the genocide. It's just theaters for him to be reelected. And while they are doing all of these theaters and spectacles right now, they are sending aid. They're sending these 16 billions recently. I think it was 16 billions that have been sent recently. While he was saying we want to stop the genocide, they're still sending missiles. They're still sending ammunition. They're still sending rounds of
They're sending javelin missiles. They're sending so many things. Trust me.
Yeah.
They make it incredibly terrible.
Yeah. They're sending everything they can get their hands on. The corporations that sell weapons in the US are thriving right now, and that's the goal, I think, of.
That's at the end of the day. That's all they care about.
I had to resist buying corporation stuff.
And about pressuring Israel to stop this genocide, I think that eventually, yes, they can be pressured. Of course, they can be pressured to stop. But the US government can stop it right now if they want. They can pressure. They have all the means to pressure Israel. Want to pressure Israel? Stop sending ammunition and weapons, and you're done. You're done.
Totally. On the topic of pressure of stopping genocide, ideally, if we lived in a world where justice was served on the basis of UN charters and everything else like that, ideally, if we could prosecute people like the Israeli politicians, thought leaders, celebrities, anybody that sort of affects the genocidal culture that is inherent to Israeli society as of right now, who needs to face the most amount of punishment? What is the most damning crimes you could probably get them prosecuted for? We're talking Nuremberg levels, we're talking Balkan War, nationalist levels, my grandpa's a war criminal type of levels of crimes that you can get these people for, and we have sufficient evidence for. And who are these people that we can prosecute ideally in this world?
The people who will be prosecuting first are the people in, of course, the people in power. Talking about the people who are asking for the munitions not to enter to the strip, of course, because you are perpetuating starvation, you're perpetuating a famine. Those are the first, I think. And of course, as well, the people who, Benjamin Netanyahu himself, and the people who ordered the military operation on a strip of people stuck in a very small strip, 2.2 million people. The people who inflicted the displacement policies and asking people to go south and then bombing the route to the south and then asking. So yeah, of course, those people will have to be the first to be prosecuted, the decision makers of these wild decisions. And of course, IDF members who committed war crimes. There are so many of them who have been recorded. So many of them record themselves and upload it to TikTok for committing war crimes. No. You can just log into their TikTok account.
Yeah.
They also need to prosecute the guy who entered some sort of a tunnel around the Shifa hospital, and then he saw some calendar on the wall. And the calendar said, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then he was like, "Oh, this is the names of the Hamas members, and these are the guys who are protecting the hostages here." And
like, this is the plan. On October 7th, we will attack Israel.
Yeah.
Do you see this?
Hamas members names are Sunday, Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday.
They are code names. They are code names. Do not be fooled.
I wouldn't prosecute this guy. I would not prosecute this guy. I would just send him to a re-education camp, and I would teach him Arabic as well.
Gulag for him.
A lovely, nice gulag with Arabic food and learning programs.
And calendars.
But,
and calendars, lovely calendars.
Another sort of follow-up question is, do you think that, while we're on the topic of just politicians, do you think President Abbas of the Palestinian Authority, I mean, do you think that he's like aiding Israel, or do you think he's just limited in his ability to stop the establishment of settlements and the trying to stop with genocide? Because if you look at some videos that are coming out of like in the A sectors of as you mentioned, there's some videos coming out on cell phones and from the West Bank where people are rioting outside of the Palestinian Authority offices saying, "Why the hell aren't you doing anything? Like, you have guns, you have this, you have ammunition, why aren't you doing anything?" So do you think that, like, President Abbas he has to sit back and let this happen, and then because it threatens Palestinian statehood? What do you think he's doing right now?
I mean, of course, I cannot get into this guy's mind and know what he's thinking, but what is obvious is that he's limited and he cannot do anything about the situation. He cannot provide solutions to any of this because he's powerless. He's not in a position of power, and the Palestinian Authority is not in a position of power right now, obviously. And that explains the situation that I told you about before, where the security forces go back to their bunkers, and then the IDF comes in, conducts operation, leaves, and then the security forces come back again to their positions. It's I don't think it's out of hate or him being against his people. It's just weakness.
So recently we've seen a lot of protests within Israel and with Israeli citizens against the Israeli government when it comes to hostages. Is there some kind of a possibility that the change or the stopping of the genocide that is happening in Gaza can come from the Israeli citizens themselves, asking the government to stop or to, like, not continue? Or is the Israeli general population just, like, fully indoctrinated and for the genocide? Is there maybe a gray area within the Israeli general population?
If they manage to do anything, the Israeli population, they would manage to pose pressure against the Netanyahu government, because they are only pressuring him to get the hostages out. These are the families of the hostages. These are people who are sympathetic with those families of the 100-something hostages that are still alive. I don't know if they're still alive because they've been bombing their own people this whole time. So their whole reasoning for this is that they want to get their people out of there, and then you can bomb these Palestinians as much as you want. We just want our people out. I don't think that any of them, if maybe there are, but this is very rare for them to be protesting for the lives of Palestinians. They're just protesting for the lives of their hostages. And once the hostages are out, I would not think that you would see anyone protesting anything, except for just like protesting against Netanyahu himself, because these protests have been happening for years because of what he's doing to the Knesset and yeah.
A little bit of a follow-up. Is there a part of the Israeli population that is against the genocide and against the apartheid? Or let's say, is there maybe an Israeli left or Israeli progressive party that is not for segregation and an ethno-state, but for integration, that still has like the Israeli elements? Or is it all just like an Israeli right wing without an Israeli left wing? Or is the Israeli left wing just as genocidal and ethno-state as the right wing?
I don't think there's a real Israeli left, and those people as individuals, they might exist, and they definitely exist, but they are from my experience and from what I see, they are very, very small percentage, and when they exist and when they show up, they get prosecuted and they get taken into investigation. So these people don't even have the freedom to oppose these policies.
What do they get prosecuted for?
Sympathizing the most common. Okay, recently some guy, I think he was working in a university, and he posted some things about saying that the people in Gaza, they don't deserve this to happen to them because they're living with these terrorists, just because they're living around these what they call terrorists. So he got prosecuted, and the charge was that he was sympathizing with terrorists. The most common charge is sympathizing with terrorism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even they keep talking about the Palestinians living inside of Israel, but those people are also silenced. And I have heard many stories about them being raided in their houses. And I've seen one video of one woman, and that woman she just liked some posts, and those posts say posts cheer for the resistance, like glory to the resistance or whatever. And she just liked them, just put a like. And there was an Israeli officer who entered her house, and he started humiliating her and screaming at her and showing her the post, like telling her, this is what he's screaming in her face. She was terrified of like some other police officers entering her house, and he was like humiliating her, and he was threatening her, and he's saying, we're going to take you to prison and we're going to keep you there for years to rot because you are cheering for terrorists and you're saying this and that. And he was screaming in her face the whole time, and she was distressed and she was crying, screaming. She's saying, no, I'm not, I didn't do this. And at the end they took her. She's in prison right now.
Holy shit.
So yeah, those are the Palestinians. Those are the Palestinians living in Israel. That's what they say. They say that we're not an apartheid. We have Palestinians, but this is how the Palestinians there are being treated. They are silenced.
Constantly watched.
So what does the Israeli left wing look like?
I don't think that there's a real Israeli left wing. It's just that they are less harsher. They are less like currently the ruling government is the far right government of Netanyahu. Is the furthest right government that has ever ruled. The left would look like Yitzhak Rabin, the Yitzhak Rabin government in the late 1980s, 1990s as well. During the time of the first Intifada, those are the guys who passed the law of breaking the bones. If you have ever heard of this law, in the first Intifada, the protesters in the first Intifada, the Israelis ordered the IDF to, if they see anyone protesting or throwing stones at them, they are authorized to go and to capture him, put him on the ground, and break his bones. Like break his hands, legs as well. Hundreds of people had their bones broken that way at that time. So this is a leftist government. So yeah. So this is the Israeli left.
Holy shit.
It's not much better than the Israeli right. Yeah.
Like
My uncle, by the way, was caught like that, but he ran away with it. Like they didn't succeed in breaking it. Yeah.
This is sort of going to be like a two-parter question. Do you believe Iran is using Palestine as like sort of a leveraging point, like in a global sort of proxy war, against both Israel and the United States? Do you think they're just kind of like, yeah, we're going to support Palestine as long as we can like wrench away Israel or like contain Israel and contain the United States to the Western Europe and Turkey, and they're not allowed to come in this sort of area? Do you think that might be it?
Yeah, I think that, of course, I agree with that. I think so.
And one more sort of like like a two-parter type of question, where this is more revolving around religion, but we all know that the Ayatollah is a Shia government, I believe, right? It should be Shia. And then you see all these other governments that are sort of involved with Israel and, kowtowing to Israel, and they're Sunni. For example, like the Saudi monarchy is Sunni, and Egypt, for example, is Sunni majority Muslim. Do you think that the Sunni-Shia divide that's been happening in the Middle East for quite some time now, do you think it's played a sort of distraction role towards what Israel is doing? Like, as a distraction towards genocide? Like, oh, you don't believe the Prophet Muhammad did this.
Definitely. If I was Israel, if I was the US, I mean, I had some strategic interests in the Middle East area. The best thing I can do is to find some points of difference, points that separate people. And Shia Sunni divide is a very strong area that they can use to play upon. Of course. It's in their interest to do that.
Have they used it in the past, and do you think they're currently using it? Like, for example, some people in the United States will say that, oh, they're using the Trump and Hillary divide. This is in 2016, where they used the Trump and the Hillary divide to sort of, like Russian bot comments, for example. It's like engagement farming to get people distracted from the politics abroad, right? Do you think that, Israel and Mossad might be doing the same thing?
In regards to your personal family living in the West Bank, are you scared that the settlers are going to personally affect you in the zone that you live in, or do you believe that you live in one of the more safer areas of the West Bank?
Well, to answer your question shortly, I would say yes, of course. Every moment I'm worried about that. But yeah, of course, it is relatively safer than Gaza, of course. They're still not having the policy of carpet bombing the area yet. So yeah, it's much safer. But yeah, there's the danger of the settlers if you go close to the city borders, if you go around the city, if you go outside of the city. A lot of people are refusing to go to their jobs outside of the city because it's becoming so dangerous to go exit the city. And even the IDF, not just the settlers, even the IDF themselves, they're becoming too paranoid. Like, if you drive a bit too fast near them, they would shoot the guards, thinking that you're trying to run over them or something.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are if you're at a checkpoint, for example, and if you walk up too fast or if you run up too fast, they think you're trying to stab them. So many people have been shot immediately for just for some paranoid IDF soldier. And yeah, of course, the situation is dangerous and it could flip at any moment.
That sort of touches on like a psychological sort of aspect. Another one is we see more that Israel's using drones. Before they bombed everything in North Gaza, they sent out a fleet of drones, I would say in Arabic, evacuate the area. But they'd say this to people that obviously can't move. They'd say it to people that, they're on the top floor and they can't evacuate quickly enough, and they'll say it over and over and over again. It's like a psychological thing because they know that they can't run anywhere. They started to do it, I think, in Khan Yunis in Gaza. They did that, and they said evacuate the area, and they'd have like these UAV drones that track them everywhere and it'd make a constant buzzing noise. Just recently, the IDF has decided to taunt people with the food using psychological warfare, such as they sent a drone out with a care package with slips of paper in it from the IDF, and has the emblem of the IDF, and it's saying, be generous this Ramadan, give food to others. But there's no food to give, obviously. So these sorts of things are happening in Gaza. It's like a textbook psychological genocidal warfare that's going on. That's like telling a Jew during the Holocaust to take a breath of fresh air as they're being, taken to a death camp almost. So Do you believe once the Israelis are done with Gaza, do you think they're just going to go immediately attack the West Bank and push everybody into Syria or push everybody into Jordan if they can? Like just using that like warfare?
Well, if they are unfortunately successful with this, then yeah, obviously their next goal would be to annex the West Bank by force, and the only way that they would like to do that is they would like a nice, clear West Bank, clean from the rest of those what they call Arabs. And of course, it has been said by many of their rulers and many of their politicians and governors that their goal is to have the whole land. So yeah, of course, the West Bank will be next. And who knows what other goals they have outside of the West Bank and outside of the historic Palestinian lands. Jordan, Syria, the Sinai Desert, again, could be a goal, even up until to the Euphrates River in Iraq. As they claim, this has been their land 3,000 years ago, up until the Euphrates River, Iraq.
Let's say that the same exact situation was happening in Ukraine, where Russia was starving people, throwing out paper slips saying, oh, for Orthodox like Lent, be generous when there's no food to give, right? Do you think that people would be more up in arms? Do you think they'd be like, oh no, we don't need to know the history's clear, all right, and it's in front of our eyes, as many have said actually during the 2022 war that's happening currently? Do you think people would call for the destruction of Russia?
I think it's the media cover of the whole story. They can control the narrative and they can control what people are owed to think about this whole thing. They will sometimes they will feed it to you, spoon feed it to you, and tell you what to think about this whole thing. And of course, in the case of Russia, for example, the Russians have been demonized in the media for many years. Like going back to the Cold War era, and it's very easy right now to go to this populace of people who have been fed this Cold War propaganda, and to tell them, oh, Russians are orcs, Russians are bad people, Russians are. So it's very easy. And also, the same people all have been fed their whole lives, this whole idea that about Israel being our greatest ally, the Jews needing a safe haven for them, a safe land for them, the Jews needing to have their own country where they can feel safe from prosecution and from the horrors that they have been through, the Holocaust and the prosecution and the Spanish Inquisition or whatever. And so those people have been spoon-fed their whole lives that these people are victims, and there are Arabs around them. There are barbaric Arabs living around these. These people are surrounded by monsters, and they need help, and we need to help them. And we, as moral Americans, we as people who are fighting for freedom, and we help people who fight for freedom and for sovereignty and dignity. Of course, we should help them. It's our most moral thing to do, is to support the Israelis. So, of course, it's very easy to tell these people that the right thing is to stand with Israel no matter what.
Speaking with like the people and how they're reacting, we know that the people in many Arab nations, they're dissenting from their Arab governments. For example, I have an Egyptian friend, and she tells me, it's like everybody's like, dude, where there's a genocide happening to the north of us, not even that, like, not super far away, maybe less than 100 miles away from us, there's like a genocide going on. It's very clear it's happening, and they feel sort of guilty, and they're getting angrier and angrier and angrier at their government. As we see that these people are dissenting more, for example, the economic crisis in Egypt with El-Sisi and everything, what do you see happening in the next maybe 30 years if there's like a popular revolution that like sweeps over and it takes out El-Sisi? What do you think will happen?
Well, if that sort of a scenario happens, and if you assume it's a revolution that brings the people voices to the top, well, I know that most Egyptian people are very not just sympathetic. They would say that they outright fight with us. So I think that will be a very bad thing for the Israelis, because not just the Egyptians, but all of the Arab populace, all the Arab populations are not just sympathetic, as I say. A lot of them, many of them, a high percentage of them are willing to go and fight, and all they say is that these borders are separating us, and our government is the only obstacle to do that.
Do you think the Hague, right? These Arab leaders, how many Arab leaders do you think are complicit? Do you think it's just the leaders of the government? Do you think it's, senators or parliamentary politicians, organizations? How many people are we speaking about that have blood on their hands that could have stopped this entire thing?
The Saudi government is complicit. The Egyptian government is complicit. The Bahrain, they have they at the beginning of when the Houthis attacked some ships in the Red Sea, the Bahrain said that they're gonna enter the coalition with the Americans. The UAE is very complicit. Egypt, yeah, I think basically those Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE, I think are the biggest culprits, and they can put a lot of step aside Bahrain. It's just like my hand is bigger than Bahrain, but the other ones are very complicit. Yeah, they can put a lot more pressure, and they can do a lot more, but they just rather prioritize their own economic interests, their very short-term economic interests.
So recently we saw a lot of countries, more progressive countries such as Spain, where I live, Brazil, and even Ireland, basically cut their diplomatic ties with Israel, stop some shipment of arms deals, and even acknowledge the Palestinian state. Do you think that this actually has the possibility of a liberation of Palestine once it gets to the state and government level? Or do you think that it's all just a spectacle, a show that is not going to lead anywhere?
No, this is not a spectacle. I think this is exactly what is needed, and it needs to be on a very much larger scale. Corporations can help in doing this, as we said before. Boycott is a long-term thing, and it helps. But actual countries, big countries like South Africa, Brazil, doing this thing. This is going to have a huge effect if it became an international movement, and this will look very similar to the movement that happened in South Africa, and how the apartheid system there has ended due to neglect, and not neglect, but due to surrounding the apartheid system and isolating it, basically, to the point where they realize that they will have no international relations. They will have zero international relations if they keep on like they are, and that's how it works. I think that isolating Israel, one of the reasons that Israel is still thriving is because people are normalizing with it. They should not be treated like a regular state. They should be isolated, and that will lead to their demise.
Just in regards to the Jenin brigades, do you think that they are strong enough to stop some of the settlers in the West Bank, or are they insignificant small group that actually has no power?
To stop the settler violence, no, I don't think it's enough. But the Jenin Brigade is a very limited regional force. Only, like, it's called Jenin Brigade because it's in the city, because it's based in the Jenin refugee camp in the city of Jenin. So their power, their influence is just very regional, very limited, and maybe they can send some attacking forces here and there around the area that they are in, but going in areas where settlers are and stopping them and fighting them, maybe they can do some operations, but their reach is going to be very limited.
Let's say we disregard these sort of neo-Kahanist principles and ideologues within the Israeli government as of right now. Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, let's say they're all just, they all have a heart attack and they croak, and the Likud government is ousted and they're labeled as a terrorist group, like the original Kahanist group was before. would Israel still be this intense? Like, let's say we did the liberal thing where it's like, we actually like gay people, but we're still gonna bomb brown people. Do you think that they'd still be as intense as they are in Gaza? Do you think they'd pull out some troops? What do you
This
think would be going on?
this reminds me of some liberals who approach this conflict by this shtick of, this is so bad. Both people are killing each other. We need to stop the right-wing government of Israel. It's all Netanyahu's fault. If Netanyahu was not there, the problem will be solved, and Israel would be safe, and Palestinians will stop dying. Basically, no. This will, if they all choke today and die, no, nothing will happen. It would just the right-wing government will just, or even a left-wing government, the government will just rebuild itself, and they will continue on with whatever policies that they think is necessary to sustain what they call their security. And their security is, as I said at the beginning of the interview, is built upon rivers of blood and stolen houses and lands.
To dollop on that.
Very well said.
Very well said. Very well said. To dollop on that sort of a Western liberal sort of attitude, another thing that liberals are saying right now is that Israel simply needs to stop because it's going to recreate another Hamas and another bigger October 7th. And they're sort of framing this as, well, it's only a threat to Israel and not the Palestinians. So do you think this framing of the situation is helpful for Palestinians, to give them some sort of like a mercy card of,
like, from a moral standing point, this is just so weird to say, like, you need to stop harassing the Palestinians or else they will fight back. Basically, that's what you're saying. You're not saying this because you're warning Israel. You're saying this because you are afraid for the occupiers' own well-being. It's just like saying, "Oh, you Nazis have to stop harassing the Jews so much. Maybe they will, or else they will maybe shoot some officers back." Like, you gotta tone it down a little bit. You gotta slow down the Holocaust thing a little bit. It just sounds like that to me. It's very weird morally, and practically it is very logical practically, because of course, if you harass these people too much, as we said before, it's like tension, it's pressure, and the pressure will explode at the end, and the more people you kill, the more people will be willing to put everything on the line and fight. And that's what's happening right now. Every time they go and mow the lawn, as they say, they went there in 2008, 2009, 2014, 2021. Every time they go, they get out, and the resistance becomes much stronger than the last time. Because when you kill 3,000 people, you just created like 6,000 resistance fighter. Because that guy,
their families are going to basically.
That guy lost his brother.
That
guy lost his father. That guy lost his whatever friend, teacher, mom, sister, or whatever. So he will see death in front of his eyes, and all he would think is that he will take from those who took his brother from him what they took from him, and he will do everything in his everything he can to do that and to inflict that on them.
Yeah, especially in a place like Gaza, where there is just death and destruction, and frankly, when you destroy all cultural, habitats, houses, you have no food. There's very little to kind of, I guess, live for than to resist against Israel. So it radicalizes a lot more people.
Yeah, you just create a lot of more people who have nothing to lose.
Exactly,
and that's dangerous. Yeah.
What are some examples of Israeli brutality in the West Bank that they're not covered at all? We know about the bulldozings, we know about the detonations, we know about the rabid settlers that shoot on sight, and they raid homes and they kill babies and things like that. They kill mothers and stuff like that. So what are some examples of just Israeli brutality in the West Bank that's never covered? It's almost like it's swept under the rug so easily in the Western media.
Well, yeah, swept under the rug. Yeah, okay, a lot of things get swept under the rug, honestly, but we Palestinians know about it. Like, for example, a lot of the times, as I say, that you get these random IDF attacks that happen just for no reason. Like, they would see someone and they would assume or think that person is suspicious. Oh, that person is moving too fast. That person is moving weirdly. So they would just shoot them, and the whole thing would just create an outrage in the West Bank and on the media and all of that, but people would not have much to do about it, and there will be a funeral done for that guy who just died in cold blood without any crime. And the media, of course, have you ever seen them? The media will not talk about this, of course. Why would they do that? It's just some random Palestinian kid who died, and just so you know, before the October 7th attacks, more than 600 Palestinians were killed just in 2023, before October. Until October 6th, over 630, I think. 630 Palestinians were killed. That's a very significant number. And this is the highest number, I think, in like 20 or 30 years. In 1 year, like, just random killings without any act of aggression, without war, without anything. Just random acts of violence around the West Bank. Like these.
Exactly. And as much as we can condemn Hamas, we gotta understand that if you do this and you pressure and you occupy so much, of course eventually it's going to bubble and burst, which it did on October 7th. So the Israeli government, I'm pretty sure they are not, but the rest of Western media cannot be surprised that this attack happened when you had exactly these statistics going on for the past many years, but many decades, but especially the last few years.
Yeah, exactly. The violence is just too much, and as I said, many of it gets swept under the rug. So that's why people get, the Palestinians attacked another country. Like some people claim to be like an attack on another sovereign land or something. But it's not like Mexico attacked the USA or something. No, this is. These people are occupied, and these people are blockaded, and that person that they attacked has been their prison, that has been their the prison guard these whole years, and they have been preventing them from food, and they've been giving them a limited diet, a very limited diet for them to eat all these years. They have been blockaded, and they control the waters, they control the electricity, they control the power, they control the resources. You cannot dig deep for water, you cannot dig deep for resources. They will prosecute you if you do that. Even in the West Bank, we are not allowed to dig deeper than a certain depth. Yeah, people cannot dig wells in the West Bank. We cannot do that because they control the water. Yeah, and if they think that you're ever trying to dig for water, the West Bank is swimming over water, like underneath the ground, because the West Bank is a very rainy place. It rains a lot in the West Bank, especially in winter. So under the ground there's a lot of water. Like Palestine is rich in water, but we still have many water shortages because we are not allowed to access these water resources.
Yeah, you're forced to have it from the black tub on top of the house.
That's water. All we have. Yeah.
That's supposed to last a week, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I've been used to my whole life. I thought all people all over the world live like that, but when I moved abroad, I discovered that people don't have tanks of water over their houses.
People say, Owen, why don't you condemn Hamas? It's like, I don't the reason why is because, maybe don't create the situation which allows Hamas to be a thing to begin with. Don't fund them for over 20 years up until the 1990s, and then expect not to have backlash against that. It's a fuck around, find out situation. It's the same whenever the USA, 9/11 happened after they funded the Mujahideen, they toppled Saddam Hussein. It's the same sort of situation. You're acting surprise. It's the Western strategy of what I like to call fund and hide politics, where they fund a terrorist group and then hide behind moralisms as to why they needed to fund it in the first place, and then hide behind moralisms as to why they need to invade that country. I'm done with it. I'm done with this sort of, do you condemn Hamas? No, I don't condemn Hamas. I don't condemn October 7th. I see it as, guess what? It's a materialist situation. I'm a materialist. I'm not a moralist. If you don't want October 7th to happen, don't fund Hamas for 20 years. If you don't want this to happen, don't do that. If you don't want salmonella, cook your meals properly. It's simple as that. If you don't want to have dirty shoes, clean off your shoes. It is as simple as that. But the thing is that Israel lives for this.
That
They
is a
live
Hamas
for this.
conspiracy.
Let them cook.
All right, I have been unironically. I was
Exactly.
talking to some Zionists in Israel. I've been talking to some Zionists in Israel, and they're Likud members. They're verified Likud members, and they're telling me, Owen, how can you say this? You're like a Hamasologist, and I'm like, holy shit, we're making up new scientific terms for people that do basic historical materialism now. I mean, it's so beyond out of the question. I mean, I'm a Hamasologist now. Holy shit!
It's so beyond out of the question for
I
them
wish
to
Iran was
see
giving me
someone
money.
thinking out of line like that.
You know, it's like you're out of the line. You're thinking with your knowledge brain.
Yeah.
You're thinking like without your dunce cap on, and people get mad at you for that. It's simple as that. You're thinking critically, and this is the problem. It's sort of in the most ironic way. It is very Orwellian. You know, you think against the party, and the party will think. It'll not just think against you, but they will act against you, which is what we have. We see all these doxings and everything. From like AIPAC and people in AIPAC, they're doxing Palestinians, Palestinian restaurants. They're trying to overthrow like people out of universities and things like that. Like on Capitol Hill, it was a shit show in the United States where we had a bunch of people in the universities, right? Where they're sitting, the Harvard, Yale, and I believe Princeton, and the lady at Harvard had to resign because she couldn't say, I can condemn anti-Semitism, but I cannot stop people from fighting each other on campus about it. That was literally their entire position.
Yeah, I think it's the most anti-Semitic thing that you can do is to correlate Jewishness with the state of Israel. Because now you will have, as a Jew, if you do that, you will have to defend everything that that state does, even the most horrific, immoral things, and it will all be kept plastered with Jewishness, which is not what we want, and which is not what any Jewish person wants.
So thank you, Zuhair, for joining us on this interview. Lastly, where do you want people to find you? You know, plug your social media, plug yourself, and any last words.
I'm just a regular guy. I'm just a regular guy. You can find me basically on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel that I don't upload anything to. I have a Twitter that I just use to shitpost anytime, so I can just let you post my links
Okay.
on the video.
Mm-hmm.
And any last comment? Just free Palestine. That's
Free
all what I have to
Palestine.
say.
Free
Free
Palestine.
Palestine.
Okay.
From the
Wallahi,
river
Israel
to the
is
sea.
finished.
Palestine.
From the river to the sea.